Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is under investigation. The House Ethics Committee released a statement Wednesday saying it was extending its inquiry of AOC, but it was not clear what specifically they're investigating. The statement did note that the probe doesn't mean she has committed any violation.
AOC was first hit with a complaint last year over attending fashion's biggest night, the Met Gala, in 2021. Always remember her dress. Conservative watchdog group, the National Legal and Policy Center, alleged in their complaint that she improperly accepted tickets for herself and for her boyfriend. But according to House rules, members are allowed to accept free tickets to charity events from event organizers, which would presumably insulate her from any violation, as the Metropolitan Museum of Art did invite her.
And she wasn't the only Congress member there, even.
No. So we got to be very careful with it. I'm going to read the whole statement. Pursuant to House rule, this is from the acting chairwoman of the Ethics Committee. Pursuant to a House rule, the acting chairwoman and acting ranking member of the Committee on Ethics have jointly decided to extend the matter regarding Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which was transmitted to the committee. The committee notes that the mere fact of a referral or an extension and the mandatory disclosure of such an extension does not indicate that any violation has occurred. So we want to be very careful. We don't really know what so it looks like they're looking into that matter still because it's been extended, but based on that information we've been given, I would not predict that it would be determined that she violated any rule. Maybe there's something else, but we know absolutely nothing.
I was curious about why they made an announcement at all, given that making an announcement without giving any meat to it sets her up for some bad faith criticisms potentially if nothing comes of it. But you're pointing out that there's a mandatory disclosure requirement. Does clarify why they would do this in the first instance. Look, it's tough for AOC. I'm not one to have any interest in criticizing her for some of the bad faith reasons that are out there, and there are a lot out there. But, this is also a time where she's under a lot of scrutiny from the left from what is perceived to be a really bad vote on the TA for the railroad workers, where the Biden administration, which has gotten a lot of criticism, even from unlikely sources, including Jake Tapper, has really, railroaded these workers and prevented them from having the leverage that all other union members have to go on strike and to get some really basic demands here, just 7 days of sick leave, where they currently have none. So the fact that squad members, all but one, Rashida Tlaib was the only one who didn't, in fact, go ahead and vote for this temporary agreement. It seems to be a violation, a very fundamental violation of what a progressive, what a self-described socialist would do, which is to stand with workers. This was a subject of an episode I just put out today on my own podcast.
Yeah, you tangled with my former co-host, Ryan Graham.
My former boss, Ryan Graham. It was a very tense conversation because Seattle City Councilwoman Kshama Sawant, who is also a socialist and someone who's held in very high regard as a model of what a lot of leftists hoped the squad would be like, engaged with him directly over the utility and how the wiseness of this vote. It was very spicy, and I think it's increasingly difficult for progressives to defend these kinds of actions when we've seen this playbook happen over and over again with the $15 minimum wage and force the vote. And in a vote like this, where they did not have to vote for the TA for the sick leaves to get to the Senate, as I discussed in a radar last week, it really seems kind of unjustifiable. So she's taking it from all sides right now.
She always does. She's just such an object of. She's a fixation for many critics everywhere. Conservative media it knows that talking about her gets viewers and clicks and et cetera.
And it's a shame because there's when there is a substantive criticism, I think there are a lot of people on the left who would frankly want to withhold it because they don't want to add to the pile-on. And I don't know that is helping the movement. It's not helping AOC to be able to assess what she should maybe attend to and what is bad faith. There's a tendency, I think, when you get unfairly attacked a lot, when you're very online, to want to say everything is bad faith. And ultimately that can prevent you from offering some correctives that might be necessary.
She got some good faith, I would say, criticism about her views on Ukraine, or if she was going to do anything to rein in unending spending, U.S. spending for the Ukrainian defense that she kind of deflected, didn't want to talk about at all a number of times.
And that's a big issue, too. So many of these figures, the bad faith attacks can fester because they don't make themselves accessible to media, and they especially don't make themselves accessible to, I'd argue, the friendly left media that initially put them on the map in the first instance, that is prepared to offer the good faith critique. So all they hear is the bad faith stuff that's coming through the more conservative outlets.
We'd be happy to have her on, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I wanted to note also, this committee, this ethics committee, recently sanctioned Representative Madison Cawthorn, outgoing Representative Madison Cawthorn was not reelected, for crypto involvement. They said he benefited financially while purchasing a cryptocurrency that he was promoting. This committee report said, while cryptocurrency promotion, particularly of a meme coin, may be a novel issue before the committee, whether a member may promote an asset in which that member has a financial interest is not a novel question, and he was fined $14,000 in order to pay that to charity. He planned to make donations to a spinal cord and paralysis treatment center and a gun rights group, he said in a statement.
What a world. The fact that there's so much latitude for Congress members. I mean, he got sanctioned, but the vast majority of the kind of financial entanglements, betting on the stock market when they obviously have insider information, the fact that that is frankly legal, and that Democrats
this is
will
likely
defend
very
it.
small ball compared to what many of our people have been
the
involved
Pelosi's
in.
are up to and all of those kinds of things. And then being criticized for it, having legislation to actually change the status quo and saying, no, actually, it would be unfair. Even Ro Khanna, who's had a lot of good takes recently, defended. He said it would be unfair to prevent spouses from being able to trade stock just because their partner gets involved in politics. I mean, come on. Every other industry, as a lawyer, as a banker, you get a lot of statements telling you have to put this in a blind trust, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's absurd that of all people, Congress people would be pushing back against this sort of thing. But
Cawthorn just did it in a too clumsy, too obvious sort of way.
Here's a little clip of today's bad faith in the discussion with Ryan Grimm.
Are you saying that those of us who are standing up for workers, we have the responsibility, you have the responsibility?
Yes, you have to find one worker.
They have to justify why it is that they voted to break a strike knowing that they literally had zero to gain from it.
The workers felt they had something to gain from it. Maybe the workers don't want to be part of this fantasy play. Like the workers
What
actually
play?
What are you talking?
to get rid of the Railway Labor Act?
If socialists and progressive had voted only for a bill with paid sick leave, who in their right mind, who's on the side of the railroad workers, would be blaming them for that? This is complete nonsense.
The rank and file organizes inside BMWED. They push this strategy.
You cannot.
And you're like, well, there's some conservative, and you smear them as conservative. On what basis are you smearing these workers?
I do not appreciate you obscuring what I said.
Look, if they had done what you said, like vote no and then they vote yes, wouldn't their critics be saying, oh, that was just a performative no vote, and they still voted for the sick leave, which then is a fig leaf that covers this thing, that then allows it to get over the Senate, which then and then the Senate takes it out.
No,
So-
nobody's saying that about.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Briahna. This is a complete straw man argument that has no basis in reality. If socialists and progressive had voted only for a bill with paid sick leave, who in their right mind, who's on the side of the railroad workers, would be blaming them for that? This is complete nonsense. And it's really just a way to, again,
Wait a minute.
reflecting away from the reality that nobody in their right mind, Ryan, maybe despite being a political analyst, you thought that the Senate, there was any chance of the Senate voting yes on a paid sick leave bill. But as Briahna, you were saying, workers in their right mind understood that there was zero chance of this passing in the Senate. So what they actually did is what's performative, which is where they gave cover to the Biden administration and to the Republicans to break the strike and to sell out the workers. And yes, Biden did betray, and the betrayal began with the Biden administration. There is no question about that. But it is commentators like yourself who will then, at any moment, whoever among the Democratic Party is in the crossfire of workers, justifiably, then those people are going to be protected. So when the fire was against workers were angry against AOC and Jayapal, then suddenly AOC starts tweeting, and then you all start defending her by saying, oh well, the unions wanted it. But as I was clarifying before you came, it wasn't union rank and file, and I don't know which rank and file you spoke to, but it is just complete nonsense to say that railroad workers who are just struggling for their basic survival were somehow going to be accepting this.
Well, look, we'll continue to follow this if there is indeed an update with this AOC investigation.
Absolutely.
And we'll have more Rising for you right after this.